Hello, hello, hello. It's Stephanie here, and welcome aboard episode 70 of the Rent to Rent Success podcast. And I know that you are going to love today's episode. You tell me you love the real life stories and people who are doing rent to rent while juggling work and family life. And today's is epic. I know you're going to really enjoy it because I am thrilled to have with me here today Nick Ifill. And Nick is an IT project management for a multi-billion-dollar company. And he's also a property professional. Now he has his own rent-to-rent business. He's a property sourcer and also a mentor. Welcome, Nick, to the show. How are you?
Thank you. Wow, what an introduction! What an introduction. So, thank you for having me, Stephanie. It's a pleasure to come in here on the podcast to join you to, as you said, to discuss and share real life situations and stories of the rent to rent journey. Obviously, many people have kind of gone through it, and sometimes there's a disconnect. But here, it's good to kind of come on your show here today and share that journey with you. So, thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, Nick, we met in Clubhouse because you're in there hosting amazing rooms and giving people great value about rent to rent. And I've been in some of your rooms and really enjoyed your sessions. So I thought I would just love to have you on to hear what you've got to say here. So let's get to know you a bit first of all. Tell us a bit about you, Nick.
Oh, sure. So obviously what I do now is rent to rent is my current property strategy at the moment. I've always had a passion for property. So way back before the last property crash. So in 2005, when studying university, I thought watching Homes Under the Hammer, as I'm going to save a lot of money kind of in my career, do all these property purchases, buy them and flip them. But obviously in 2007, we had that property crash. So obviously, not knowing then what I know now, is I thought now's not a good time to kind of go and buy property. Maybe just kind of get focused on my career. So I kind of got stuck in a rut. I was a driving school instructor for many years. I then retrained to kind of go into IT to where I am now, and obviously kind of getting higher and higher up in my corporate career. But like most people, the higher you go, you find yourself giving a lot more time to your job. So obviously you're trading that time for money. And then it was kind of recently, I think it was back in 2019, is, you know what, I want to kind of look at the avenue of going back into property. I was in a position where I didn't have a lot of capital at the time. Due to past mistakes, I had bad credit, which some people do have as well. And I stumbled upon rent to rent. And obviously for me, that was a fantastic way to kind of get involved in property without having to put lots and lots of cash involved, leveraging on the landlord's mortgage. And I thought, this is a fantastic kind of property strategy to kind of go out which I can do well at and execute. So my journey started in 2019. It didn't really get going until last year due to the pandemic. So before that, I did a few kind of online YouTube kind of learning, reading a few books here and there. But it wasn't until 2020, you know what, if I'm going to take this serious, I need to kind of get educated, back myself, invest in myself, where I did some education, did the education, and then really kickstarted the journey through a pandemic where we got our first property in June of 2020. So 2020 was a year for many. It's been a hard year due for COVID, but for us, it's been a great year.
That is amazing. So a few things that you mentioned there that I want to bring out because they're just things that I noticed that people ask me about and people worry about. You mentioned having bad credit at one stage, and I think, yeah, you're so right. That happens for so many people. It might be happening for even more people now with what happened last year and losing their jobs. So can you give us a few tips for how to start when you've got bad credit, or what you would say to somebody who was thinking of starting but they're worried because they've got bad credit?
I mean, the first thing with bad credit, the first thing you have to own up to the situation. And I think that's what a lot of people don't do. And I was definitely a person that was in that situation. I was in a financial struggle. So when I changed from my job from being a self-employed driving instructor, obviously being self-employed, you can write off a lot of your expenses. I then went back into the corporate world and I took a huge pay cut to do that. Even though I got better hours, but I took a huge pay cut. And I was in a situation where I went to a payday loan, didn't know what I was kind of doing, and then ended up getting a payday loan to pay back the other payday loan. But it was a situation where I didn't own up to the situation. Had I had owned up to the situation earlier on, it wouldn't have snowballed into the situation that it was. So the first thing, whenever you're in bad credit, it's like an addiction, maybe. Just own up to the situation. Say this is a
Mm,
situation where we need to speak to someone and write that situation down. I owe this
mm.
amount of money. This is what got coming in. This is what going out, and then you can kind of work back with the work to a plan to kind of and get to do through that. But in terms of rent to rent, what I would say is if you do have kind of bad credit, remember you got to treat rent to rent like a business. So yeah, you might have bad credit, but you're going to be setting up a business. And if, for example, your business is going to be very new, you can maybe use investors to help you do past credit referencing. But I wouldn't necessarily see it as a roadblock to stop anyone from kind of getting started in property. Just see what the challenges are, and try and work through a solution for it.
Yeah, that is such phenomenal. That's such phenomenal advice. And the second thing, thanks for that, Nick. It's great to get that insight about you just decided basically to take it head on, work out the credit, but then you just decided to move forward with the business and not to let that hold you back. And look at where you are now, because what we discussed earlier just before going live was you and your partner just buying your own home
Yeah, that's
together.
correct. Yeah, correct. We're just going for a purchase. It's a flat which we're going to convert into a three bed. We can't. We're going to do it as a minimo, but we can't do it as a minimo at the moment due to our current mortgage product. But that's kind of future and down the line, and obviously kind of using that to kind of catapult our kind of purchasing. So, well, rent to rent is great, right? Obviously, you get the cash flow, but you don't get the capital appreciation. It's not creating that long-term wealth. So I'm a believer of having wealth and cash flow combined together. So
Yeah.
it's gonna kickstart our journey into that.
You're a man after my own heart, Nick. I love that multi-pronged strategy as well. So that's great that you've gone there and you got started. But tell us about the second thing I was going to draw out. I was just thinking, what was the second thing? Is that really you started this in the lockdown?
Yeah. So yes, I said the journey kind of started in 2019. That's when I kind of had a little kind of taste of what is rent to rent. What is this property strategy that everyone's talking about? Going on YouTube, and most people when they type of rent to rent, you might see Samuel Leeds or yourself on
Yeah,
YouTube
yeah,
and seeing all
yeah,
those videos. But it wasn't until 2020 where I really kind of, as I said, kind of did the kind of the education, and I'm a strong believer if you're going to do something, you need to kind of get educated. And yeah, it was through a pandemic, and I remember taking on a property. So I just finished my 2 day training course that I did with my mentor at the time. So we did a 2 day training course, and then we went into a lockdown. And then I thought this was 2007 all over again. Just when I want to get started in property, something is happening in the property market, which is going to be a roadblock. But it was a situation. I think anyone that's on your mentorship course or training will can attest to this. That if you have a good mentor, that's what their job is, to help and guide you through those difficult hurdles. So
yeah.
speaking to a mentor, he said, "Okay, well, yeah, this is a situation, but work with it." And the fact, because we was in a pandemic, we had COVID going on, but we had a lot of stimulus from the government that trying to keep business going. And one of the things that we used was the bounce back loan. So we use this. Obviously, our business was established before the March date. We had our projected figures, targets that we wanted to kind of get to, and we use that to give us an arsenal to say that we can kind of go out to the market, find these properties, not have to then worry about financing them, because we had this kind of pot of cash within our war chest to kind of go out and purchase property. So for us, even though yeah it was a pandemic, we kind of use that to our advantage. Then also, whenever there's uncertainty in the market, there's great opportunity. So you have
Mm,
these landlords when COVID first hit, didn't know what was going on. So obviously, you
mm.
can kind of come along and say, look, we can maybe take that hassle away from you, give them the kind of the guaranteed rent that you do as a rent to rent provider, and ease some of their pressures. So I think COVID, as I said to you before, it's been an opportunity for us to kind of really kind of grow our business tenfold.
Yes, that's incredible. We Troy Balladue came on as well, and Kaylee, and they were also started within the
Yeah,
lockdown period, and they also used the bounce back loans. But the thing I draw out of that to listeners is both you and Kaylee and Troy started without knowing the fullness of where you were going to fund everything. You
yeah,
made that
yeah,
commitment, and to find the resources that you needed as you needed them. And once you were on that path, fully committed, another door opened and it was the bounce back loan. Now, had you not committed, you would never have seen that because it wouldn't have been available to you because you wouldn't have had a limited company, etc. And it was only because you were fully committed that that opportunity said, here, Nick, have this. And
absolutely, the more you kind of manifest stuff within your mind, those opportunities centered to kind of place themselves in front of you, as you just said rightly.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is the action. So when you're taking action, when you're starting up your business, when you're doing things, even though you haven't got the full 100% of resources you need, maybe you've got 60% or 50%, and then you're fully committed. You set up your business, you're taking the actions, you're finding the properties, etc., and then you're taking actions and resources come to you. But I just want to commend you on that, Nick, because that's something that a lot of people don't do either. They wait till they have 110%, and by then the opportunity is passed. So tell us about, because when people are getting started, so I love to ask you this question, is when people are getting started, they have a lot of concerns or fears or worries, if you want to put it like that. Did you have any concerns about getting started with Rent to Rent?
Yeah, I remember when I said, going back to when we took on the first property, a lot of my concerns weren't there until I took on this first property. So we got the first property. The first one is always the hardest. I remember before I even got the keys, I was going anywhere. I was going up to Birmingham. I live in London. I was even going to Birmingham looking at rent to rent deals. I was so eager to kind of get started. But the first worry and concern for me was when we took on that kind of first property, because it was a big one. It was a monster. It's a 7-bed HMO. So we didn't start small. We went straight in at the deep end. And obviously them being responsible for that landlord's rent. And as I said, this was in the middle of COVID. I don't think we had come out of the first kind of lockdown just yet, or just kind of coming out of it. So that's when I said I was panicking. I said it wasn't. I didn't rent the rooms out in time. I got it ready, but the rooms weren't going, and I was panicking. I was worried, and I was almost at a point. You know what? I want to give the keys back. I don't want to do. I don't want to do this. I think that's the kind of the worry that I had, was more about being committed to this rent, and obviously that you sign up on in the contract. But in terms of the rent to rent strategy, I don't have any worries about in terms of the strategy itself. I knew what it is. It's not rocket science. You're taking a property from a landlord, you give him A as his rent, you then rent it out to the tenants individually, minus your costs, and that's a profit. And then if you have the understanding and reading the books and getting the knowledge, I think you can kind of be successful at it. So I didn't have any worried about the strategy, but more about just that kind of financial aspect.
Yeah, let's come back to that financial aspect. But let me just ask you another question, because I'm really interested. So you said it's a simple strategy. In some ways it is. You just rent the property, rent it out again. What made you go on the training course then? Because...
So I think, as I said to you before, is I was doing kind of a few kind of stuff myself, reading books, but I wasn't really progressing. And I felt that I felt that I needed a mentor. So it wasn't necessarily a course, but it was a mentor to help kind of guide me. I think everyone needs a coach in their life, whether you need a personal trainer, whether you need a property coach, whether you need a coach in your life, or if you're a boxer, you need someone in your corner. So someone just kind of help and kind of guide you. They've been through the journey before. They've seen the mistakes. And just to kind of help you, this is what you need to do. Maybe you're doing this right well, but you can just read it a little bit and you can kind of get further along. So I definitely am an advocate of mentorship.
And let's go on to now, because that would be a worry for a lot of people. So you got your first deal. Let's talk about how you got it, and then we'll go on to the worries. So how did you get your first deal? Tell me.
Sure. So our first deal, our first 2 deals actually came through property sources. Property sources in the property industry, they get a bad rep. There's so many bad property sources. People that maybe done a short course, have written a property sourcer, and all they do is go on Rightmove and send them a link, and hey, I've sold a deal. But for us, I looked at it as a way to expedite the journey and the path that I wanted to kind of go down. I knew where I wanted to kind of be before the end of 2020. I set myself a target. I want 6 properties. And obviously seeing taking on properties through a sourcer, because if you look at rent to rent, most people try to go direct to the landlord or through an estate agent. You might find a property that needs some work doing to it, might need HMO compliance. You're going to spend that money effectively anyway. So for us, looking at the figures, we paid £2,000 each for the deals. Each property was generating about £750 a month cash flow. So that I knew, for example, within about 4 months, we could be breaking even, roughly or almost at a particular point from our capital that we put in. And obviously, you're going to use it as a springboard to when you're trying to get new deals. You could say to the estate agent or say to the landlord, "Hey, look, I'm a renter or I'm a HMO manager. These are my two properties. Here, look at my work. I can show that to you." So it's a proof of concept. So for us,
Yeah.
yeah, we're paying for it, but it's about returning the investment. And for us, it was a winning situation in terms of going for it and getting that return back.
Great. And where are your properties, Nick?
So again, one lesson I would say to someone getting started in rent to rent is maybe focus on one area. So we have kind of properties in West London, we have properties in South London. So we have properties in the Tooting area, so SW17. We have some properties in West London, so Ealing and Isleworth, and we have properties in the Brent area, so in Harrow. So a little bit all over the place. I think for now, what we're going to try and do is concentrate on patches. So build one area, so build West London, then build North London, then build East, and then build South.
Yeah, and what you could do, well, depending how big you want to be, you might want to be in all these different areas. But if you decide you want to focus on one area, then obviously you've always got the option to sell on the other
Absolutely.
deals. As long as all parties are agreeable, there's no reason why not to do that. So that's what I love as well. It's so flexible. So you got your first deal through sources. People will be very interested in that, and it worked out well because we hear so many horror stories. So that was really good. But then you got your first deal, and it was in COVID, and you're a bit worried about having all the rents. But before, how did the refurbishment go, Nick?
Or sourcing. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can. You did cut out
Yes.
for a moment.
Apologies, I was on Do Not Disturb. Not too sure why a call came through. So in terms of refurbishment, big lesson learned on our first kind of deal there. Obviously, we paid the money for the sourcing, and we thought, well, we could look around. I could do this myself. I'm a dab hand with a paintbrush, and I thought I'm going to save a lot of money rather than bringing in professional tradespeople. So that was a big lesson learned in terms of it took forever to do this property. It almost took, I'll say, 8 weeks. That's 2 months worth of rent being missed out. So a lesson learned for me then is kind of going back to a book that I read just before that was obviously Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm sure everyone's read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Is rich people spend their money to save their time, whereas poor people spend their time to save money. So I was definitely in the kind of the poor dad mindset at that time. So for me, lessons learned is now I don't paint anymore. I bring a team in, they kind of get the property done. But the refurbishment went well. We did the property up. So when the sourcer kind of packaged us the deal, they gave us an average. Well, you could earn about X amount of money per room. I'm going to go above and beyond that. I'm going to do some fantastic rooms, paint nice feature walls, put some nice furniture in there. We got above average from what our sourcer kind of said we could potentially kind of get. So really pleased that we did that. But yeah, the refurbishment went well.
Yeah, brilliant.
Too long.
Sorry? Say that again, Nick.
I haven't taken too long. It went well.
Yeah,
I haven't taken
brilliant.
too long. It went well.
Good. Apart from taking too long. That's often a way. Ours took too long and it cost too much, but our very first one. But it's worked out to be a great deal for us still, and we still got it to this day. So kudos for that. So what tip would you give to somebody who's maybe got their first property and they're wanting to get it refurbished?
Is I would say when you're trying to do rent to rent is try to make simple decisions. This is not your home. Trying to think about all styling options of what I need to do here. Have what I call a cookie cutter approach. All of our properties tend to generally look the same. We know we're going to paint in feature wall. It's going to be one of three colors. We know what the other styles are going to be. We know what the soft furnishings are going to be. A lot of the successful people in your life don't waste their time on small decisions. Look at
Mm.
Steve Jobs, for example. He wore the same kind of black polo neck t-shirt. Simon Cowell with the same white shirt because they're not wasting their time on small decisions. So what I would say to anyone getting started, have your color palette kind of set out beforehand. Go into B&Q, get what you need to do, job done. So try not to waste too much time trying to style it and present it into your own home.
That's a great tip. What would you say? I don't know if you feel you've already talked about this. Was the biggest mistake you made on the refurb?
Yeah, I said I think the biggest mistake was just doing it myself, spending too much time to kind of
Yeah.
get it done. In I think I was saving money, but I was actually costing myself money by it taking
Yeah.
too long. If I
Yeah.
got someone done, paid the money, we could have got it rented out a lot sooner than we did. So yeah, that was the biggest mistake on that first particular project.
And how did you go? So you got those two projects in different areas. How many of you in the team? Because you're saying we. Is it you and your partner, or are there more of you?
So yeah, so our team has just expanded. So at the end of last year, we started interviewing for VAs. So we now have a fantastic VA on board that she works within the business. So she does a lot of the operations side of stuff. Also helps with our social media design. And at the moment, they're part time, but obviously the plan now is to bring them up to full time very shortly. We've brought on a property manager. So a property manager will be looking after half of our portfolio that we have, mainly concentrated in the South London area. And we've just brought on a business development manager that will be helping myself to kind of go out, find deals, work with clients, work with our estate agents, work with investors to bring them on board. So yeah, so we're currently growing as a team, and obviously I have my partner as well, who's a co-director of the company.
Gosh, that's a lot of stuff. What basis are you employing them on? Are you taking them on contracts? Are they self-employed? Are they employed? If you can
So,
say.
the VA is obviously is a contract base. So obviously we're paying on a contract base hour. The two people, so the property manager and the business development manager, we took it on a situation very much to a similar situation that I was in. They people that have expressed, hey, look, I like what rent to rent is. I want to learn what rent to rent is. I don't have any money for paying for education. And so, you know what? Let's trade on value. Back in the day, there was no physical cash. We especially from the ethnic minority, we used to call that the barter system, like trade and value. So I said, look, if you, I see what you want to do. Is this is what I'm looking for? Is I can trade on my value in terms of showing you the journey that I've been on, teaching you and showing you all the stuff that you need to kind of do to get where you want to go. And obviously, what you can kind of give me is just help me with your time in the skill set that you have. So yeah, so it's not necessarily employment, but heavily incentivized as well. So for example, with our business development manager, it's commission based. So obviously, if we take on those deals, there's a commission incentive for that as well.
I love that, Nicholas. I just think you've got some great ideas here. But that's a phenomenal one because we actually do get quite a few emails where people want to work to learn and in an unpaid capacity so that they can learn about the property business. It's not something we've done, but I think that's great, and to be able to do it on a commission basis so that they can really add some value to your business, but also add some value to their own pockets. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely, that's all about making a win-win situation for everyone, right?
And this is something that people worry about as well, that once they got their business, that they're then going to be working in it full-time like a job. And it just isn't like that. For a start off, when you've got a few properties anyway, it's not a full-time job running them. But then you can also outsource it like you've done. And you've done it much sooner actually than we did.
Yeah, so I was from the very get-go. I didn't want to trade one job for another job. I didn't want to train from being IT project manager to being a property manager. That was never my goal, never my intention. So I was always at the point where if I can try and bring systems and processes in place from the very early on, that's what I'm going to do. So that's what I do in my day job. I'm an IT implementation project manager. So it's all about bringing in systems, make the life easier as you can do. And then obviously where we need to get to is it can't be just myself, and I need a power team behind me. I need people, I need assistance. So yeah, so it's all about creating and sharing.
Yeah, totally. So tell us about how you systemized it then, because you've brought all these people into your team. So you've obviously got a way of onboarding your tenants and, so, finding new business that you passed on to your property manager and your business development manager. So can you give us any insights into how you did that, or any tips that people should bear in mind when they're starting to systemize their business to take on staff?
So one of the big things I think anyone getting started is to have a good way of managing your leads. So lead from your landlords, lead from your estate agents, you lead from your tenants. So having a good CRM system, so a customer relationship manager system is going to be vital, because obviously, as you know, when you call an estate agent or you call a landlord, they're most likely to say, "Well, hey, we're not interested today." But most people kind of just say, "Okay, fine, move on to the next." But the key is in the follow up. So the key is making sure that you take a note of that down. They said no today. Okay, cool. I'm going to give them a call back in 2 weeks' time. So making sure you're tracking that, I'll say, is a good tip to have. So we use a platform called Agile CRM. There are many platforms out there. So my strong tip in terms of systemizing your business is have a way to manage your leads. Then when you grow your portfolio, having a way to kind of manage your tenants through that process. So we have just signed up to Arthur Online. So we're at the process of bringing that fully into the business, fully integrated it. It's a bit of a minefield at the moment, so we're gonna get there shortly. But Arthur Online has kind of really helped. Until we kind of get there, we're using things like Google Drive to make sure we have a shared document folder for our VAs and all of our team members to kind of work through that, so that we can all kind of share it and work on the process. And also about having operations manual. So I was very adamant that I want to have an operations man. I want to treat this like a corporate business. So if you went to a corporate job, is you'll say, hey, look, here's your training manual, here's what you need to do. And that's what we kind of said with the VA, that I'm training to do what you need to do, but then you need to kind of go away and create this operation manual. One, it will help you with your learning, and two, if you progress with us, hopefully you can kind of get up to the point when you're maybe training the next person that comes behind you. So it's definitely a point
Yeah.
that I wanted to kind of bring the operations manual, because you also don't know, they might leave, they have stuff going on in their life, and if you have nothing written down, you're going to find yourself back in the same position again 6 or 12 months down the line.
Those are such great tips. And the thing is, I remember that before we took somebody on, I'd just blown it up to be this big deal. But actually, you can just do the things. Now we've got loom.com. So you can do the screen share. This is how I put the ads on Spare Room. This is the text I use. This is where the text is stored. These are the messages that I send on Spare Room, etc. And you can do the process for the last time, record it, and then give it to your
Yeah,
VAs. And then, as you said, Nick, they can actually create the written version of that. That can be one of the tasks that they do for you.
absolutely.
So it's amazing. So kudos. So how did you go, Nick, from the first two properties, you got them from a sourcer, to now you've got properties dotted all over London? How did you go from there to there? Tell us about that journey. Because
So for us, go ahead, sorry.
I did invite you to speak, and then I decided to talk again because I was just remembering you were nervous about filling the first two. So maybe let's touch on that. You were nervous about filling the first two because it was in the lockdown, etc. So tell us what happened there.
So yeah, I think we used momentum. I think momentum is key, really. So yeah, we took the first two, and the first one and the second one were very close by. And then obviously getting the third and the fourth came through building relationships with estate agents. So some people either prefer the direct to landlord route or prefer the estate agent route. For me, I like the estate agent route. I like building up a rapport with estate agents. So effectively, your estate agents are becoming your sources. Now, what actually happened, our second property that we took on, it came through a sourcer, but I built up a strong relationship with the landlord because it was a director landlord. And that landlord actually was a director at an estate agent. So he then made the connection. I then built up a relationship with that estate agent. So now we've then gone on to take 3 properties from that one estate agent. He actually phoned me last week. He said, Nick, I have another property. Do you want it? It's yours. Take it in June. So we've now got our next property in the pipeline. So it's all about building up that pipeline. So for me, in terms of success and how it kind of came about, is building up a strong relationship with estate agents, because that's, I think, where the success is going to be. If you have a handful, at least 3 or 4 estate agents on your books, is you can be successful at rent to rent.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. I love that. So you got the first 2 from sources, then you got director landlord, is that right? Who was a director of an agency?
No, so the director of the landlord was our second property.
Oh, right.
But then he then made the introduction to that estate agent, so helped us get our other ones. And then obviously our other one came from an estate agent as well. Yes, it's all of them have come through either an estate agent or a source. I haven't had one that has been direct to the landlord as of yet.
It's the power of referral, word of mouth. So when we say tell everyone what you do, Maria also, who's been on the Rock Stars as well, she's had so many referrals from landlords. Lois has, Mark has. It's just a great way to get more properties by just doing an amazing job, and then people are referring you left and right.
Yeah.
So
even the property that we just purchased that we're doing up, so we've got a builder that's coming into play, and I said, obviously speaking to the builder, I said, look, this is what I'm in property as well, and the property that I went to view today was a referral from the builder, because he referred me to the landlord. Say, look, so as you said, the power of kind of telling people what you do and networking.
Yeah, we've had properties from our builders as well. It's brilliant, just letting people know. So what would you say is the best thing about, having started now your own rent to rent business?
I think the best thing, as you said, kind of earlier on, is now that you've started, you've started the journey. If you never start, you never kind of go anywhere. And the first step is always the hardest, as they say. So the exciting part now for me is seeing the potential of where it can kind of get to. So for me, rent to rent was never kind of the end goal. For me, it was the start of the journey. So for me, property is kind of moving on to the next stage. So the buy, refurbish, refinance strategy, moving on to doing flips, moving on to doing commercial conversions. We're in 2021 where I believe there's going to be a staycation boom. So maybe even kind of taking on an SA in this year or next. So so for me, the exciting part is the potential. And obviously I still work full time. So obviously at some point it's going to get to the point where I do have to kind of give up my job. I do enjoy my job. I enjoy the company that I work for. It's flexible. It's a US company, so I can tend to kind of work my UK rent to rent business in the morning, come in the afternoon, do what I need to do for my day job, and then kind of go back to that in the evening. So for me, it's kind of having the opportunity to have freedom where I don't have to kind of work a 9 to 5. That's an exciting part for me as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it's for so many of us, that's the answer. You just want the freedom to be able to live life your way. And it's not always about the Lambos and all of that. It's just about having the choice. Having the choice. That's just such a gift, I think, that you've given to yourself by what you're doing. And what tips would you give for people who are getting started, who are listening to this, maybe like you were back before 2019, who are wondering, I'm not sure. What would you say to them?
So I would say the first thing to do whenever you're starting any sort of new journey is write down your reason why. Write down your reason why you want to kind of do what it is you want to do, and that will help you to kind of get you through to the situation. Of, I want to be financially free, or I want to go on 10 holidays a year. I want to build this new house. So write down your reason why and where you want to kind of get to. And the key thing, anything as I said to you before, is you have to have knowledge. If you don't have the knowledge, you're not going to know what to do. So if you're going to take it seriously, be prepared to invest in yourself. So a lot of people think, you know what, I don't want to pay for education, or I can try and do it on the cheap. So even get a book. So you got a book out, Rent to Rent Success. I look forward to reading that. It's on my to-do list of books. So it's just good. It's gonna be so. Read. There you go. Read the book. It's been fantastic. I can't wait to read it. Even take it a step further. Do a training course or get a mentor. But that definitely the key thing is you have to take action. If you don't do it, then you're not gonna get it. There's a saying that goes, if an egg is broken from an outside force, life ends. But it's broken from an inside force, that's when life begins. So it has to come from within. It has to come from within you. So you're gonna have to be the situation that you want to create the change. And that's why a lot of people fail when they say, I want to lose 10 pounds, I want to lose this. But their goal is not big enough to make them change their life. So you have to 10x your goals, try and think big, and then take the action that you need to kind of get there.
That is such an amazing answer. And I want to thank you. It's been great to speak to you today, Nick. You have not disappointed. I heard you on Clubhouse, and I definitely wanted to get you on the podcast. And I think you've given some great insights. Nick, I know that obviously you've got your rent-to-rent business, but you also do mentoring and helping people to get started with rent-to-rent, and you've also got a sourcing business. So what's the best place for people to find you if they want to get in touch?
So the best place for me where I'm most active will be Instagram. So you can find me on Instagram, which is Nicholas, NICHOLAS _IFILL. So you can reach out to me on Instagram. Obviously, as you know, we host a Clubhouse room every Monday on 7 to 8. Troy is one of my co-hosts who you know very well. He hosts on me every Monday. So you join the Clubhouse room. You can see there you got our website address, so winpropertysolutions.co.uk. Reach out to me there. In terms of the training company, so I work with my mentor, so Property Wealth Education, who we then help train rent to rent people, just like as you do. But yeah, so many ways to kind of get in contact.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Nick, for coming on and sharing your wisdom and your experiences with us. I think you brought some new insights. That's why I love these conversations, because there's lots of different approaches and different ways to do it, and it's brought sources back into the glory days, because so many times we hear rent-to-rent sources and it hasn't worked out well. So I'm glad that you've been able to do that. Is there anything you'd like to say just before we close, as a message before we leave?
No, so thank you, Stephanie, for inviting me to the stage to kind of share my kind of journey. And I think seeing yourself and your sister Nikki, to kind of the success you guys have taken, Heaven, obviously Rent to Rent Success, is truly inspirational. And especially, I'd always say, is being a person of color, an ethnic minority. Is we unfortunately we're in a situation where we're not financially educated. Our parents weren't financially educated, and their parents weren't financially educated. So now is the time is we need to share this and give it to everyone that we can, so you can be financially free. You don't have to be in the rat race, working 40 years of your life, 40 hours each and every week, to then retire on 40% of your wage. So now's the time, as I said, if you're going to do anything, now's the time to do it. There's opportunity. Don't be scared. I think Warren Buffett says when people are being scared, now's the time to be greedy. So kind of go out, take the action. That's the key. Take the action. Be an action taker. Be an enabler. Be an action taker. As I said, I look forward to reading your book. I'm going to give you a glowing review once it's done. I just want to say.
Oh, you just faded out. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
I just want to say thank you to everyone that's joined. Yes, it's been a pleasure.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Nick, for joining us. And thank you for listening and for watching. We're always excited to be here. I loved the insights Nick shared today. And until next week, remember, believe bigger, be bolder, be a game changer. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.
I like that.